Logged in. I don't. There we
There
go.
we go.
Hello, welcome to Leaders Who Last, our interview series with Latitude to explore what burnout is looking like in 2025 and what we can actually do to prevent it for ourselves and for our teams, because burnout in 2025 is a little ridiculous. So joining me today is Bhakti Karkare. Did I say your last name correctly?
Karkare.
Karkare. Oh, I'm going to work on that one.
Totally okay.
So excited to have you here with us today. Good friend with SHRM Greater Phoenix, I believe is how we met, right, Bhakti?
Yes.
Yes,
I met you
awesome.
speak at one of our conferences, which was amazing. You did
It
a
was an incredible experience. It was really, really great. I really found that the local SHRM units put together some amazing conferences.
yes.
Yes.
Shout out to Sharma Peter Phoenix. If you're interested, talk to me. Enjoy.
Absolutely. We're going to have all of Bhakti's contact information down in the comments, as well as when we send this out in our newsletter and everything. So really great contact to have in your network. If you have anything to do with learning and development, with leadership development, so excited you're here and joining us, Bhakti, because this is going to be a great conversation. And let's get right into it.
Yes.
Burnout in 2025. You know, every interview I ask this question, how are you defining it? And every interview, my answer changes. And my answer right now is the many leaders that I've talked to in the last 2 weeks that have said, I already weathered a pandemic. I'm not doing this again. Right? And so like to them, if they feel that way in 2025, the way they did in 2020, to them, that is burnout. Like that is it, right? So I'm interested to hear from you. How are you defining burnout in 2025?
I wrote a definition because I wanted to kind of frame all of my thoughts about burnout in a couple lines, which is impossible because we are, seeing burnouts of so many types, and there's so many factors defining burnout. Like when it was COVID, and COVID kind of became the trigger for burnout, and became the conversation starter. And now there is just endless. The list is endless, and the things that we should be attributing to burnout are it's an endless list. So I decided to write a definition, and I thought that burnout is this deadly crash. It's a deadly crash that happens after a series of very prolonged instances of discomfort, disempowerment, and disconnection.
Discomfort, disempowerment, and disconnection. And I feel like the disempowerment and the disconnection feeds right into what we were talking about specifically around burnout was the lack of dialogue, how a lack of dialogue between an employer and an employee, a team leader and a team member, a volunteer coordinator and a volunteer, if we have a lack of dialogue, especially right now, and I'd like to really explore that, especially right now, if there's a lack of dialogue, it very much can push someone towards burnout, both the leader and the employee. But what are your thoughts around how dialogue is impacting burnout?
I see dialogue as the solution, and lack of dialogue as the precursor. That it's that delay in having the conversations that matter, and because of that delay in conversations, we feel as individuals and as communities that we don't have the power to talk about the things that matter. I mean, we talked about the car crash story. I think I ended up burnt out in that moment because of what was happening before that. And it's this overextension of the discomfort that goes on and on and on without having any outlet to speak about it, get any help about it, get any support, and feel that someone who is leading me can see that I'm going through this. And it seems like I'm alone, I'm isolated. And that's what, if that happens over a period of time, again and again, leads to this kind of discomfort and isolation and distress that leads to burnout. So burnout is like the extreme end of that collection of feelings that happens. And my very good friend and speaker, Anna Milliken, look at her. She talks about burnout in a very different way, but she really kind of clarifies what is overextension and what is burnout. And we kind of use burnout as a as a word for everything that happens when we start feeling tired and exhausted. But it's really like a journey towards that final crashing point, which is where we give up. And then we start voicing it or completely isolating ourselves in ways that are not helpful for anyone. So to get to the long story short, that it's this dialogue about this overextension and overexhaustion that needs to happen, so we do get there, so we get the outlets that we need. And I think we need, especially from leaders, we need that kindness and boldness both to talk about things that are exhausting people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You are speaking my language. In our framework, when we are teaching burnout prevention skills, we have to start with defining what burnout means to you, because it's this universal pitfall, but a really individual experience. For
Yes.
some people, it's overwhelm. For other people, it's emptiness, right? It's an individual experience. And so when we can both define the burnout as well as identify kind of what the emotional journey is, like, for example, myself, I know if I get bored and I stay bored for a long time, I get frustrated. If I stay frustrated for a long time, I get angry, right? And that's pushing me towards that burnout. I know my journey. So if I have a boss or a team leader who is able to engage in safe dialogue with me, so that I can say, boss, I'm bored and this is not good. Or, boss, I'm really struggling because I have a trans kid and the world seems to be really against them right now. And for that boss to be brave enough to engage in that dialogue, that is burnout prevention.
It is. And I think it's that subtlety of what burnout can look like and feel like and sound like is where leaders need to tune in a little more. And I'm talking about the leader as an employer too. They're also burning out. So this is an elevated responsibility on part of the leader to kind of prevent themselves from crashing as an employee and then help others not get there. And I think we are not understanding burnout in the dimensions, the multitude of dimensions that it need to be understood. And what you are highlighting is amazing. That my definition of burnout is that of exhaustion, not having enough agency to speak up when I don't want to engage in some kind of work, or when I need rest, or when I need more support from people around me. And that's kind of my worldview of burnout. Your manager may have a very different worldview of burnout, and you bringing in a very different dimension to it. And that's where I think dialogue comes in place. Dialogue is not the solution. I mean, let's talk about a moment in time in an organization or a project where exhaustion is inevitable, that everyone has to stretch. It's that time when the team has to show its resilience. And if someone is crashing or burning, the solution is not to give them rest, because you have limited resources. Or the solution, if someone is in emotional distress, the solution is not to say, hey, you're out of the team because you clearly are not functioning correctly. That's a choice that they can make. But the solution truly lies in having a dialogue. And we see that this dialogue is not just a solution oriented dialogue, it's the process of the dialogue that's the solution. And I really want to stress on this as I'm thinking more and more about the power of dialogue when it comes to burnout, because you got this question to me, that it's, we think of dialogue as an as a process, as a event that if it happens, we'll find a solution together. And that's a wrong view of dialogue. It's the process of dialogue, the engagement, and the emotional interpersonal exchange that can relieve people, that can create the space where they can talk about the things that matter, they can share emotions, find connection, because disconnection is a big part of burnout, that I'm the only one going through it, feeling isolated. So creating that dialogue, the process of dialogue can create all these wheels that can help people deal with burnout, find ways to navigate through it without crashing.
Yes, yes. I think one of the most powerful examples of dialogue and burnout that I've seen recently, I had this client, he was the CEO, he had a chief HR officer who was the only woman and the only person of color on the executive team. Okay, we already know where this story is going. And as things became less and less sustainable, as she had less and less resources, but more and more demand on her, the burnout was starting, right? And unfortunately, how the CEO interpreted it, because internalized bias, which we all have, it was going towards this identity trope versus seeing the signs of burnout. And so I was very lucky that I got to be called in and work with this team. And once we were able to start engaging in some dialogue, where he was able to start really hearing what burnout is and how it's coming for this woman. And he was able to identify it in his own life because his father-in-law had just moved into his home with him and his wife for his end of days care. And the stress level has gone up exponentially for that CEO. And so he's also at risk for burnout. And so once we were able to identify that certain identities and times in our lives can be really pushing us towards burnout, when we can engage in that dialogue, suddenly, even though those pushers are fully different in those two lives, it creates understanding, it creates connection and not isolation. It prevents that isolation.
I always, when I think about such emotionally high situations, when it's really easy for us to draw conclusions, assume the worst out of people, and jump to finding solutions quickly. These are the things that come in the way for dialogue. In your example, it's, this woman is not performing, there's a bias, let's find a solution, let's treat her and make her perform better. It also happens with team. I was working with a team with a leader, and this leader is an amazing, very emotionally self-aware leader, or very intelligent and understanding people. And this team had just delivered on a very high stakes, very stressful project, and it failed. It failed so miserably that now this team has 2 days to kind of correct everything. This is a technology team. There are so many bugs that the customer is just very, very annoyed and frustrated. They're at the brink of losing contract. And the mistake was so avoidable, but it happened. And because it's not one person's fault, many people were involved in the oversight of this, and everyone missed it, and it happened. And now this team has just come out of this stressful situation ready to celebrate. They are now here fixing the problem. And I remember being a part of this team because I was their learning partner. So when this happened, I was also invited to just come to that meeting because this big thing has happened. And this leader walked in, all 50 of them are sitting in a big conference room. And what are you expecting from this leader? The expectation is he's going to flip out. He's going to like, who is this? Let's figure out, on all the jargon is going to fly out. And, let's course correct and let's find out what root cause analysis. And he comes in, and the first thing he does is he says, guys, you have done a great job. Congratulations on achieving this enormous there is a but coming. You can see that he is going to flip out very soon. And he never flipped out. And all he said was, we are humans. Humans make mistakes. They've given us 48 hours. I'm not going to stop you today to work on this tonight. We have 48 hours to answer. Please go home. Go home and find your way of de-stressing. We'll come out tomorrow. And he just went on to talk about how great each individual is in that team, how they have contributed, what are their strengths. Just 30 minutes of pure unfiltered gratitude and praise of these people.
Gosh.
And the next and of course I reached out to him and said, I don't know, where did you find that courage to not talk about the elephant in the room and not worry about it? He said, I'm burnt out, and if I am, they are too. And no amount of me yelling or trying to root cause analyze this is going to change where we are right now. Why should I be the person to push them on over the edge?
Yeah.
We will figure it out tomorrow. It's tomorrow's battle. I want to appreciate them today. And I think it's an anomaly. This doesn't happen. I don't think I could do it. I don't know, as a leader, if this will be my response to a situation. But it really requires you to look at a situation, step out, and see what does this group or this person need right now. What's coming in the way? And where can I connect with this individual? And I think that's the start of a dialogue.
Mhm.
After that, we went through a complete rehaul. This team really figured out the problem, never had such an issue again, and it became a case study in how to handle stressful situations within the organization. So I think when you asked me about leaders, leaders have this additional responsibility to see what people are going through and how not to just go to the default responses. The default of leadership is to course correct. The default of leadership is to get people to come to their come and show up with their highest performance levels. It's not always required, and sometimes giving people the space to de-stress, to not perform, is the best way to get them to perform.
Oh, there's the quote of the day. Sometimes giving our people space to not perform gets them to perform better.
Yeah.
Boom.
And isn't it counterintuitive? It's you. I mean, how organizations are designed. If some leader does that from time to time, they are going to be termed loser. Like, what are you doing? You don't have a control of your team. You don't know what you're doing. You're softy. You're a softy. You're a this that. I mean, and that's the systemic issue that we are facing. That it's all burn and go, 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 and we're not realizing this go, go, go is not getting us anywhere. We just
Ah,
move in circles.
yeah.
and
Yeah.
and this space for having conversations, and it sounds like, really, what can dialogue do with burnout? It's that process that is going to create just the right mixture of elements that people need to deal with burnout, to deal with the stress. And when that happens, you have a workforce, you have an individual who's going to show up the next day fully committed, very resilient.
Right? And capacity restored.
Yeah,
Because when it's gone, it's gone.
it's gone.
Like we
Yeah.
can't just come up with new capacity somewhere, new energy, new focus, new attention. Like we can. We know what creates it. Rest.
Mhm. Yeah.
Rest.
Yes.
And
And
it can be active rest, it can be passive rest, but it needs to be rest. Yeah. Sorry, you froze, so I'm not quite sure if you're still with me.
I am with you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. There you are. Yes.
The other thing I want to point out is that burnout or tiredness is a taboo. It is so much burnout happening that no one wants to talk about it for coming across as a failure. Like,
Yeah.
this is a topic that needs provocation. It's not going to come out just by itself.
No,
You know,
no.
right? And I think a lot of employers, a lot of leaders are riding on that silence. That,
Yes.
because no one is complaining, okay, they are resilient enough, they're going through it, they're managing it, I'm doing a great job as a leader, my team is amazing, until it crashes and burns.
Yes.
And
We
so
have
I
to be proactive instead of reactive with burnout.
exactly, and also not treat silence as a sign of no stress,
Mm-hmm.
because I think silence is like this biggest accelerant to
Yeah.
burnout. Like, what is cause silence is the accelerant of burnout,
Yes.
because it's only only a certain point till which a person can stay silent and keep going, and then they're going to either opt out or they're going to crash and say everything, and that's of course not a dialogue. um, and so and I think it's both a leader responsibility and individual responsibility to start speaking up. And there are of course barriers to this speaking up the wazoo. Like, everything in our organizational structures is making us silent. And I that's where I think it's the leader who has this added responsibility, because they have more power, they have more agency to weed it out and to provoke people to talk, uh, to ask the questions and create the vulnerability in a room where people can talk about their struggles. And I
Yes.
think the reactive approach to dialogue is, okay, if they speak up, I'll handle it. Oh, they're not speaking up. They're not going to speak up. They're
Mm-mm.
not going to come out as the person who is tired and
Mm-mm.
crashing. Everyone wants to be a hero, because again, you are appreciating heroism and the hustle culture, right? So it's all so interconnected. So where do we break the cycle? It's that point of provocation when the leader has a choice. Say, am I going to entertain this, or am I really going to deep dive into this and see what my team is going through? And it's a choice. And I think smart leaders who care about people and understand people's capability kind of go there, and they absolutely weed it out and bring it out of people as to what's going on, what's wrong, and what can we do about it. And those who are smart but are not smart about people, they think they can ride this one more cycle, and then we'll give them the break, or then we will talk about this, or let's just shove it under the carpet. So I really want people to kind of think of their roles as this provocator.
Mm-hmm.
You have to start the conversations. Sometimes they're not happening to you, they're not coming to you.
Yeah.
And as leaders, if there are leaders listening, there are so many tools for you to be able to provoke people to speak their truth, and it starts with you. And then the last thing I want to say is why people avoid this is also very, very biological to us. uh, the concept of short term stress avoidance is the evolution. We have evolved to avoid short term stress. Everything we do is to avoid short term stress, whether it's our decisions, our choices, how we live our life, our habits. So especially when it comes to dialogue, you have to catch yourself avoiding short term distress, and say,
Mm,
this short-term distress is not like avoiding this little stress of having the tough conversation or asking the question is not worth it, because in the long run it's going to come back and bite
yeah.
you.
Yes. Yep. In the long run, it always does. With humans, it's the way it works, period.
Yeah.
Well, I love this. And for anyone who has tuned in since we got started, Bhakti is an amazing dialogue expert from the learning and development world who helps leaders understand how to most effectively engage in the dialogue that their employees and their team members need to have, not only to prevent burnout, but also to see the success that they want to see. And I know that for myself and my clients, we want to provide a resource for that as well to help those leaders. And so in our Burnout Starter Kit that you can find at burnoutstarterkit.com, there is I think it's the second lesson, is about identifying your warning signs and then identifying how can I enlist a coworker and a family member in looking out for those warning signs as well. And then they can ask me to do that for them. So it can become this community web of support. And the teams that have done that, when the leaders have brought that conversation to the team and said, okay, let's define our own versions of burnout. Now let's identify our own warning signs. And now let's help each other keep an eye out for those warning signs.
Yeah.
Ooh, the dialogue that can come from that is so beautiful. And
Yeah.
I know you have some incredible resources for leaders as well to engage in that dialogue. Can you tell us about them?
Yeah, so I have an assessment that leaders can take free on my website to understand what is their team's dialogue health right now. Where are you as a team? What are your tendencies as a team when it comes to difficult conversations, even regular conversations? And it gives a diagnostic assessment of what are their tendencies and are they actually having dialogue, which very rarely most teams are having, but are they stuck in endless discussion cycles, or is it a very confrontational, frictional team? So you will get a diagnosis of where you stand on a continuum, and then it starts my email list will give you 5 emails with practical applicable strategies to start a culture of dialogue in your team and identify what are the issues that are stopping your team from going to the next level. What are the things that are coming in the way? I also have, I also have a dialogue guide, which is essentially a toolkit for leaders to get the confidence and courage they need to have difficult conversations without feeling like they're going to hurt people, offend people, or without having to worry about the outcomes. It really is a very inclusive dialogue guide, and it gives tips and tools that any person, any individual or leader can apply in their conversations, day-to-day conversations. So that's the link we're seeing here.
Yeah, it's an incredible guide. I've been able to download it and go through it, and so much value right there. Really, yes. If you're someone who knows that there's a gap in your leadership skills and engaging in those difficult conversations, or you just want to up level your skills, Bhakti is an incredible resource for that. And I definitely encourage you to get in her DMs and connect with her. And lastly, before we're done with today, this has been such an incredible conversation, but I'd like to wrap up with the question that we ask every week, which is, how are you finding joy these days? How are you accessing joy? Because at Latitude, we consider joy a strategy to burnout prevention, not just an outcome. So I know for myself right now, I'm accessing joy because it's spring in Arizona. It is why we live in Arizona. It's gorgeous right now. I'm spending as much time as I can outside because in 2 months it's going to be too hot.
Oh yeah.
How are you accessing joy these days?
Well, really, my backyard is finally green again, and I have this tree that just came out of nowhere in my backyard when we moved into this house. It was a twig, and then we called someone and asked, "What is this?" And he said, "It's a Chinese ash or elm, some kind of tree, and it's growing leaps and bounds." And it gives me so much joy because I really have a brown thumb. I am not good at gardening, but this tree has just sprouted, and it is growing leaps and bounds, and it is my constant source of inspiration, that sometimes things work out, and I just keep trying to find the right things to grow something else. So yeah, I that tree is my source of inspiration, and just sitting in my backyard before it gets to 110 is a source of joy. Like being in Arizona, weather is such a big like trigger. Every morning if it's below 60s, I'm happy. So yeah.
That's
um,
true.
Definitely, but I think I'm also finding joy in slowness. I've been personally struggling with some issues in my own business and how to get to the next level, and the urge to make decisions fast and get things going fast has been so strong, and intentionally slowing down in order to speed up, slow down to speed up, has been giving me joy. It has been difficult, but when I find those moments to read a book or to just work on a plan, gives me a lot of joy. So those two.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us, especially through all of the resources that you have on your website. Audience, I'm so glad you got to meet Bhakti. She is an incredible resource around dialogue and how to use it as a way to up-level your team and up-level your own career. So highly encourage you to get in touch with her. And if you're looking for a way to start developing some burnout prevention strategies for yourself and for your team, come on over to latitudeleaders.com. We have a capacity assessment, very similar to that dialogue assessment that Bhakti does. All the best consultants have a way for you to understand where are you now and where do you want to get to, right? And what's the best path to get there. So I love it. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for exploring with us leaders who last and how to lead without losing yourself. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you for having me.